items which concern reports and items of a routine nature normally approved at board meetings will be approved by one vote unless any board member desires to have a separate vote on any or all of these items. The consent agenda consists of the discussion, consideration, and approval of the following items. A, the minutes from August 11th, 2014, special board meeting. B, the financial reports, the activity account, and the treasurer's report. C, encumbrances and changes in the following funds. General Fund, fiscal year 15, number 1156 through 1368, and number 50,000 through 50,228. 2, Building Fund, fiscal year 15, number 1, and number 3, Child Nutrition.
Good catch.
Fiscal year 15, number 29, and numbers 50,000 through 50,018. D, fundraisers. E, contract. Looks like we don't have any.
No.
F, resignations of Sue A. Tatro and Sherry McElvain.
I'd like to request that we vote on item 3A, the minutes, separately, please.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda items B through F.
I'll second. Roll call.
Jamie Mills?
Yes.
Kay Levy?
Yes.
Jack Cadenhead?
Yes.
Amy Coclaser? Claudia Willis?
And I will make a motion, we approve the August 11th, 2014 special board meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Wouldn't that just be two people to vote on it?
That's true. Well, but
That's
okay?
a majority.
It's a quorum.
Two out of three.
Well, that's true. We have a quorum, so
Okay.
yeah.
Jamie Mills?
Yes.
Kay Levy?
Abstain.
Jack Cadenhead?
Yes.
Amy Coclaser? Claudia Willis?
Introduction of guest and public discussion by those who requested audience. Just a reminder that you sign up for 2 minutes to tell us what you're thinking. Jim Choate? That'd be you.
My name is Jim Choate. I live out by Pleasant Grove School. Just kind of cut to the chase. Recently, in the past few months, there's been some discussion and activity regarding the Pleasant Grove School property to where the purpose of my coming here tonight is I wanted to see if the school board has any kind of a current position regarding the PG school property, and if not, that's fine. And I would understand that. But if so, just kind of wanted to see what the position, the school board's position on it, and if they are wanting to consider different options for using the property or disposing of the property. Wanted to see what kind of proposals you would want to see. I expect you'd want to see something written and in writing, and not just sit here and kind of brainstorm a bunch of ideas and act on it. Certainly not tonight. I don't expect that. But just in the near future, I just kind of wanted to see what the school board's position is as to that property, so we can kind of help in making that decision. Again, I live right next to the property. I graduated school out there. My kids went to school out there, and I used to be on the school board out there, so I have a lot of interest in seeing what happens to that property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's an example of how to do it in 2 minutes. Right?
That's, tell you
Nice
what,
job.
can we beat that? No. Stephen Choate?
Steven's not,
No?
said he wasn't going.
Oh, you're not going?
Yeah, let Jim.
Okay.
Bill's here, though.
Bill Choate.
I can make that amendment to,
Okay, thank you.
not something in writing, I'll get you anyway. My name, I'm Will Choate, also a patron of not only this school district, but the former Pleasant Grove School. I wanted to consolidate, I guess, my comments in 2 areas. One, there's an acceleration of vandalism out there. I believe it increases. There's various reasons or motives, I guess, for it. But I remember a county employee told me one time, well, if it's not locked up, doesn't have signs on it, anybody can get in there and do it, so it might as well be me. And I know there's been pilferage and that sort of thing. What I'm suggesting is that there ought to be an immediate security in the form of locking the place up, putting signs out and so forth. I'm suggesting that this could be in terms of a proper lease for a care provider for the facility. And then I'm saying that there ought to be a period of time in which we can put together a permanent arrangement. I also attached here to my comments a copy of the warranty deed. And notice that this deed was executed in 1926. According to my stand-up review of the court, or the county clerk's record, there has been no amendment to that, other than, I think, and I didn't even get into that, the property across the street, but I reiterate what Jim has said, that it's time we got into a formal disposition here. I'm recommending to this board that there be a formal solicitation for bids. I believe that we need to iron this thing out. Who has authority to act? You'll notice this was a warranty deed. Are you prepared to give a warranty deed, for example? And I believe that I did contact the School Land Commission and the State Board as to Board of Education as to what input they have or what controls they have on property. I believe this must be a problem that other school districts have. But the bottom line is, I would like to start the process off by offering my own proposal. My proposal would be that we not use any this district's money. I believe any property that's debt-free, which this is, ought to be able to generate its own income to provide for itself. And that could be done on a lease basis, but maybe with an option to buy. Thank you.
Thank you. Erica Tiger? No? And Linda Hardy?
My name is Linda Choate Hardy. I'm a 91 graduate of Pleasant Grove High School. I represent a number of alumni and community members who are driven and concerned about the school and the heritage of the school. It's vital, imperative, and so important that we pass this tradition on to our children. And I was with my dad yesterday at the courthouse, and the names of Vernon B. Harris and Branson H. Harris bounce off the page, tug at the heartstrings. We don't sever 100-year ties. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have 30 seconds. There's a centennial,
You have
a
more than that.
centennial opportunity you'll notice in the coming years. So be mindful of that, centennial. That's a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Administrative report and correspondence?
Yes, I'm going to say a few things here, and then we're going to have our site principals talk about the test scores at their sites, and they'll do a PowerPoint then, so you might have to kind of scoot around because the only way we're set up here is for it to be behind you.
right on my
So,
face.
Yeah. Good screen.
Can you read it?
So I'll just start off real quickly saying that the school year's off to a tremendous start. Students are working hard and they're behaving well, just doing an outstanding job. Our staff is fully engaged in preparing students for success in the school and in life, and just couldn't be more pleased with the way school year started out. Been really good. I'm really happy with the group that we have working for us. From, you know, like I say, the students are just great. They're handling the changes so well. Just really, really good students. Couldn't be more pleased. A little bit of report on our FFA team as far as the Seminole County Fair is concerned. Our FFA team won first and second place in livestock judging. That was the teams. And then also Joanna Brooks won high individual and livestock judging. Destiny Cloud won reserve grand champion for dairy goat. And Andrea Mitchell won reserve grand champion for horse and grand champion open class heifer. So congratulations to them. And Dara Campbell's doing an outstanding job. Really pleased with the job that she's doing. And one of the things that's on the agenda today is for us to add to that with the beginning of a 4-H club, which I think will contribute to that success, and excited about the opportunity to do that as well. I spoke with Renaissance Architects, and they said they should have the cost estimates and some of the conceptual drawings ready by the week of September 22nd. I've been kind of pushing them to get those to us as quickly as we can because we want to be able to look at those, decide if there's anything that we want in addition to that, so we can start preparing for our bond election. Of course, we have to have all the paperwork in place for the bond resolution in November, and so hopefully this will give us plenty of time to proceed with that. I just want to say once again how pleased I am with Ed Lemmings and Willie Williams and the great job they're doing. They're making a positive difference in our schools, and I've really enjoyed being able to kind of get their take on things because they haven't been involved in the school system for a while. In particular, Willie, and him coming back and making statements like, "We really have good kids," just does my heart good because we do. And anytime that you're there and have the opportunity to be around them, well, you can't help but love them. They're just really fine young men and women. David Cobb is working with, I told you we were looking at starting a Facebook page. He's doing this within his yearbook class, and he has selected a few students, and he's working with them. He said he doesn't want to just start it without really having a good launch, and so they're kind of training, looking at it, finishing up a few yearbook things like selling their ads, and then getting ready for the launch of that. And also they're going to take over the day-to-day operation of our website, wanting to make it a little more interactive, changing our pictures more often, and just trying to get a better public reception out there. So excited about that. And of course, I've told you we have our school board meetings are on YouTube now as well, so you can access it from the website. Okay. Ron Osborne, new high school counselor, had provided one of our senior bulletins for you, and that's something that Ron Moddermog used to do quite a bit, and we've done several times in the past, but I was really pleased. I was in a classroom with him yesterday as he was speaking to a group of seniors in senior English, and not only is he getting the senior bulletin to them, but he's also giving them a questionnaire, and in that questionnaire he's requesting email accounts for the parents so he can continue to update them, and so they'll know about scholarship opportunities, any of these things, because sometimes the parents and the seniors will look at a bulletin like this and sometimes they won't, but if he can continue to remind them on any of those type of issues, hopefully that'll be something that will be useful to them, and we won't have any situations where someone says, "Well, I didn't know." Hopefully they will know. That's our goal, is to have good communication about everything that helps them prepare for their transition into college and career. As you know, the state of Oklahoma lost the No Child Left Behind waiver, and that was due to legislative repeal of the Common Core state standards. Without the standards, Oklahoma now reverts back to the previous PASS objectives, which have proven to be very ineffective in preparing students for college and career. So it makes it really difficult for us to go back to standards that we didn't believe were good standards to begin with. The consequences of this loss, really we don't know what they'll be exactly. We know that you can lose 20% of your flexibility or your federal funds because you have to set aside 20% of your funds for things like transportation for students that give them opportunity to transfer to another district that maybe has better test scores, for tutoring and all those different type things. And that loss of flexibility would begin next year, and that's not really as big of an issue to me as the fact that probably 90 to 95% of the schools in the state would end up on the needs improvement list. And being on the needs improvement list, actually, depending on when they decide to institute that, because if they go back and apply the No Child Left Behind standards to the previous 2 years when we were on the waiver, schools could be at any place along that continuum, because when you're on needs improvement list, of course, in 2014 was a year that every single student was supposed to pass every single test. It started out where it was a low percentage in 2002, and by 2014 was the year that everybody was supposed to be perfect. No one failed a test, and if you had students fail a test, well, then you would be a school that needs improvement. And so as the standards grew and grew and grew, more and more schools fell on that needs improvement. That's why because of inaction at the with Congress as far as doing anything to reauthorize the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which is No Child Left Behind. That's why they granted waivers, because every school in the whole country would probably end up being on that needs improvement list since Congress wouldn't do anything. And so the waivers allowed people to have a way around that unattainable goal. The problem that we see is that depending on how they implement the bringing No Child Left Behind back in, it could force 90 to 95% of our schools into a turnaround mode. Because if the way it was all set up is that if you were a needs improvement school, you had a period of time to get that corrected, and if you didn't get it corrected, then you went into what was called a turnaround mode, which meant there was about 3 or 4 that you could choose from. They included firing the principal and up to half the teachers, closing the school and reopening it as a charter school, and state takeover of the school. And so what's ironic is the fact that our legislature didn't want federal incursion into our schools, so they wanted to do away with Common Core, which wasn't even federal incursion to begin with. And what they've done is opened the door to possible massive incursions by the federal government, enforcing all these different school sites into one of the turnaround modes. So exactly what they were saying they wanted to avoid, they've opened the door to. And what's aggravating is that they didn't take the time to even look at what the possible consequences might be. They just acted from political pressure or ignorance. I don't know what else to say. So hopefully we'll see what happens with that, but it'll be interesting to see where all the school sites in the state land on that.
Do you know why? I mean, how far did they actually get in the process of the State Board of Regents of, approving our standards as college and career ready?
See, they couldn't do that. The state regents had to do it because it had to be
Right.
someone else that did that. And because that happened so late in the session, they asked the regents to do that, and I don't know if it was just a delay in getting that to them. I don't really think, because Superintendent Barisi was not for the repeal of Common Core, I don't think that she was real adamant about her people getting anything to the regents very quickly, because she's the type that would be more like, okay, I'll show you what can happen, and this is what can happen. So I don't think that she was really pressing anybody to make a decision on that, because she was perturbed in the way it happened.
Well, if they would have done it, real quickly,
Mhm.
right after that repeal, that would have obviously looked like a political,
Yes.
just done just to
Right.
circumvent the
Yeah.
federal incursion, but
Well-
it could have been done so much earlier.
Right.
And maybe they looked at them, but.
Well, no, they haven't yet.
But they haven't.
They're due to October 15th is the day they're scheduled to make their decision on whether they feel like they meet the standard. And once they do that, well, then we could probably reapply, and that could very well happen. I question, if they come back and say that they are college and career ready, I question how they determine that, because they haven't proven, because of the whole time we've been on those past standards, that our need for remediation has increased. And so if they come back and say that they really are standards that will prepare students for college and career, I question how they make that judgment. And it could be political pressure that forces them to make that. Yeah. Is that all on that? Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to congratulate our September Educators of the Month. Erica Dean is our certified educator, and Stephanie Fletcher is our support honoree. They were honored at the forum today, and congratulations to them. It was mentioned a few weeks ago about the possibility of having a board retreat. I'd like everyone, if they would, to kind of check your calendars. I've tentatively scheduled one for September 30th at 1 o'clock in the SSC boardroom. If everyone could kind of check their calendars and see if they're available then. If you are, well, then we'll do it then. And if we need to move that, Atlanta's very good about working with us and said
What
we
day
can
of the
schedule
week is
another
that?
time. That's on a Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Is it
Yeah.
is it?
It would be however long we want it to be. Yeah.
Have a board meeting that evening, but we'll think
Well-
about it. Yeah, if it's not in the evening.
Okay. Well, hopefully it'll be one that wouldn't be too long, but just a chance to kind of do some goal setting and strategic planning, looking at no action. Of course, anytime there's a retreat, there's no action to be involved. Okay. If you'd let me know on that, I'd appreciate it. And so we're good to go on that if everyone else is good for that. And then, as I was talking about earlier, our new benches have arrived.
Right.
If everyone gets an opportunity to go by and check those out, they
Saw
look
those
really
this
good.
morning. They were nice, yeah.
They look really good. Really proud of that. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to our site principals to talk a little bit about the test scores at the sites. Anyone doesn't know Mr. Rigney, this is Mr. Rigney, assistant principal at the high school. I didn't do my job on introductions, right?
Okay, first of all, I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity to come and address you guys and talk to you a little bit about our test scores over the past year at the high school. And you can see on the first slide the areas that we test: English department tests in English 2 and English 3, the math department tests in Algebra 1, Geometry and Algebra 2. In science, we test Biology 1, and then in our history department, we test U.S. history. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through what the scores are from last year, and then Mr. Osborne will come up and give you our strategies for the upcoming year and what we're doing presently to improve those scores. We'll start off with English 2, and each one of these slides that you'll see for the high school will represent students that are FAE, full academic year students. And then you'll see on the slide we have a number for all students and then a number for regular ed students. In English 2, you can see that of our regular ed students, 83% were proficient or advanced, and all students were 79% proficient or advanced. We feel pretty good about those numbers. They're actually they're 1 percentage point higher than they were last year. So it's in the correct direction. It's a small gain, but it is a gain, and we're happy about that. English 3, again, these are two separate numbers. The regular ed students had a pass rate of 90%, proficient and advanced, and then all students, the number is 83%. And that is a pretty constant number right there in that English 3 classroom. The next area is Algebra 1. In Algebra 1 numbers, regular ed students, proficient and advanced are 42%, and then all students figured in is 38%. Obviously, we have a ways to go here in Algebra 1, and we have we've done some things that Mr. Osborne will talk to you about to greatly, hopefully greatly improve those numbers. They're not where we want them to be, and we're going to work to get them right. The next area is geometry. In geometry, regular ed students, proficient and advanced, have a number of 77%, and then all students would be 70% pass rate. Algebra 2, regular ed students, 72% pass rate, and then all students combined is a 64% pass rate. And so again, the last two numbers there's some room for improvement, and we feel like we're making those strides to make that happen. Biology 1, regular ed students, pass rate of 40%, and then all students is a pass rate of 37%. Once again, nowhere close to where we want to be, but I will point out that the pass rate has almost doubled over the past year. So it's we're working the right direction. I think last year our pass rate was around 23%, and this year to show 40% is a significant gain. And we've done some things to really, the way I said earlier, is it's kind of an all hands on deck approach in the science department. They're all on board. They work very well together, and that's one of the reasons you've seen some of the gains right there, and we expect for that to keep going in the correct direction. So it's not where we want to be, but it is a substantial gain over the year before. And then finally, U.S. history, regular ed students at an 82% proficient or advanced rate, and then all students at a 72% advanced rate. And once again, I'll turn this over to Mr. Osborne, but he's going to talk to you guys about some of our strategies to make these things better. And I'll just mention that these are ongoing. They started within the first week of school, and you guys know how much time we have. We were limited on time, and we felt like we really needed to jump in with 2 feet and really get after it and see what we can make happen. So thank you guys for your time.
The algebra
Yes.
one,
Uh-huh.
that's so low, was it
Yes.
low the year before also?
No, I can give you the number from before. It was at 79% the year before.
The year before that, we were 97.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
We had a teacher retire that was teaching all that, and we're in a situation where a lot of times it's one teacher that teaches it, and when you have someone retire that has a lot of expertise, that really knows how to, have the strategies to attack deficiencies and really know how to look at the data, and then when you bring someone else in, sometimes it takes them a while to grow into that, and we're doing some things to address that, but we're not near where we want to be.
Right.
Not near where we're used to being either.
Right.
any other questions? Mr. Crosby?
Okay, Seminole High School. What do we do with these datas and where do we go from here? First thing I want to talk to you about tonight is the remediation program. Remediation is something we use when a student has failed an EOI and needs to be remediated in order to pass that. We're going to start this year an EOI boot camp. The EOI boot camp will be an intense remediation service offered in 2-week intervals. These will begin the second semester and be scheduled outside the regular school hours. These boot camps will concentrate on the areas of the subject that the student is deficient in. OdysseyWare is a program that has been here in the district for a while, and something new they've added to it is the CRX mode. The use of OdysseyWare in the CRX mode will administer a pre-test to a student who are loaded into these programs. Then the remediation administered will just cover the deficiencies that the students have instead of reteaching the entire course. We're planning to strengthen the instruction across the high school. We've introduced intermediate algebra. Our 8th grade students who did not pass 8th grade math tests were placed into intermediate algebra this year in order to help these students gain concepts that have been missed or need to be heightened before they take Algebra 1, as well as the Algebra 1 EOI. Our EOI peripheral materials, the high school teachers are using these books in Algebra 1, Algebra 2, Geometry, and Biology. These books are designed to give practice skills and reviews the students need for 100% of the standards on EOI tests. These books are prescriptive and are broken down by the EOI standards. I implemented a 4-step lesson plan. Teachers have all been asked to start using this and are. This template is designed to ensure that teachers look at their lessons in a close light to answer these questions. What are we teaching? How are we teaching this lesson? What are we using to enforce this lesson? And how are we going to measure mastery? This slide is a look at the lesson plan template. It is electronic, grows as you type in it. I visited with all the EOI teachers, and we've sat down and remapped all the curriculum and added in pacing guides. All teachers have now mapped their curriculum and have aligned it with the past standards. Pacing guide is part of this process that keeps the teachers on track with the timeline before the state testing starts and makes sure that all standards are covered and the importance that the EOI test places upon them. This is a sample pacing guide. As you can see, I believe this is Algebra 1 in 1.0 number sense and algebraic operations. There are 15 questions on that test about this. It covers 27%. Our algebra teacher will spend 8 weeks on this. Inside this is section 1.1, equation and formula. Out of the 15, 6 of those questions lie right there. 3 weeks will be spent on that. 1.2 expressions. There's 9 of the 15 in this section. We'll spend 5 weeks on that and so forth. This is set up on a 28-week regimen. Teachers have broken down their test results. All teachers of EOI subjects are breaking down their test results. These breakdowns are listing strengths as well as weaknesses. The departments are then asking themselves, why are our students deficient in these areas? Then the teachers are using this data in their curriculum maps to strengthen identified areas. Professional vocabulary, all teachers are now stressing professional vocabulary of the test within the classroom. This vocabulary is being taught within the lesson and not in isolation. Weekly department meetings. Weekly department meetings focus on curriculum or discuss any issues that need to be addressed. This is also turning into our first PLC at the high school. Better aligning of students to college and career pathways. Students will be placed on a pathway as a freshman and have a plan of study designed to follow them through their high school career. This path is similar to a degree plan developed in college. This is a sample of that. This would be your, let me open mine because that's too small for me to see. This would be an example of a college-bound student. And as you can see, as a college-bound freshman, they'll come in and take Algebra 1, unless Algebra 1 was taken and passed in the middle school, in which case they will go into geometry. In the science, Biology 1 may be requested if the student has passed Algebra 1. I met with the science department and they felt it was imperative that those students had the skills from Algebra 1 in order to pass biology. Pretty much all the rest of them will stay the same. You have your pre-AP English or your English 1, and then your fine arts, foreign languages, and then your electives. This will be the state graduation bound. As you can see, if you're on a state graduation bound, when you come in as a 9th grader, you'll take intermediate algebra in order to strengthen those skills that we discussed earlier. In science, we're going to lead them toward the physical science realm and grow them toward our biology scores. And then, of course, the social studies, language arts, and all that is pretty much the same. Any questions?
Thank you, very good.
Thank you, Mr. Oliver. Okay, for my part of the presentation, I'll be going over the Seminole Middle School test scores. Looking at the Seminole Middle School test scores, we're looking at, of course, the full academic year students. Okay, we're looking at the regular ed students and all. We're also, I'm going to point out to you the pass rate for our students, which would be the students that were advanced and proficient. For U.S. History 8, for regular ed students, we had a 64% pass rate, and for all students, we had a 56% pass rate. For reading, 8th grade, all students, regular ed students, we had a 79% pass rate, and for all students, we had a 72% pass rate. Okay, for Math 8, regular ed students, we had a 53% pass rate, and for all students, we had a 47% pass rate. For Algebra 1, for all students, we had a 100% pass rate. For Reading 7, we had a 70% pass rate for regular ed students, and we had a 61% pass rate for all students. For 7th grade math, we had a 57% pass rate for regular ed students and a 50% pass rate for all students. For 8th grade science, for all students, we had a 40% pass rate, and for regular ed students, we had a 40% pass rate, and for all students, we had a 36% pass rate. I thought I would take this time to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that not just Seminole Middle School has regarding test scores, but all schools across the state have. The first thing that I put up there was change in the FAE definition. The FAE students are the students at Seminole schools, are the students that schools are held accountable for. 2 years ago, the FAE definition used to be that if you were enrolled within the first 10 days of school, and you had continuous enrollment throughout the year, which means you weren't dropped during the year, then you were considered a full academic year student. Last year, they changed that definition from the first 10 days of school to October 1st. So if you enroll on or before October 1st and you're not dropped during the year, you're considered a full academic year student now. Students that enroll usually after the first 10 days of school are what they consider highly mobile students. And those students generally have lower student achievement and lower test scores. Changing tests. Just in the last 2 years, at the middle school, there's been changes to 2 tests that our students take. One was the U.S. history test. Before they changed that test, we had a pass rate of a C+, which was 77%. And when they changed the test this year, our pass rate was 56% overall. 2 years ago, we had a change in our writing test. Before we changed that writing test, we had an A. After they changed the writing test, we had an F. Changing cut scores. 2 years ago, they changed the cut scores for our science classroom. At that time, we had an A. Now we have an F. Next thing I have is all students not taking the math test. 2 years ago, our students that took the Algebra 1 test, which they generally all pass the Algebra 1 test, they also take our 8th grade math test, which they would also pass. This last year, they changed that, so the students only take the Algebra 1 test if they're enrolled in Algebra. They don't take the Math 8 test or the Math 7 test. Therefore, we still get credit for those students, but we used to get credit for them twice. That has lowered our 8th grade math pass rate. Changing student growth calculation. When the A through F system first came out, a student that moved from one category to the next, you would get, if they moved more than one category, you would get more growth points for them. So a student, if they went from unsatisfactory to proficient, you would get 2 points for them because they moved to limited knowledge and to proficient. Well, they changed that, where now you only get 1 point for those students. So a student that moves from, say, a student that goes from unsatisfactory to advanced, you get 1 point for them. You only get one student. You also only get 1 point for a student that goes from unsatisfactory to limited knowledge. So you could have a student that has a tremendous amount of growth and jumps a couple of categories, but we still only get 1 point for them. And we had a number of students that went from unsatisfactory this year to proficient. The biggest change and the biggest impact on test scores for this year has been the change in modified tests for students. This year was the first year where students were not allowed, special education students were not allowed to take the modified test. In the past year, those students have always been allowed to take those tests. In my opinion, it's unfair for students that require modifications because of a disability to take state tests that are not modified. Teachers are required by law to modify work for special education students, but the state has eliminated the modified test. If we look at this chart, we can compare our pass rate for our students with the modified test and the students without the modified test from 1 year to the next. So 2 years ago, in 2013, we had students that took the modified test. Our pass rate for those special education students was 74%. Reading, 71%. Math, 58%. Reading 7th grade, 50%. And math, 53%. This year, without the modified test, our pass rate for science was 12%. Our pass rate for reading 8 was 33%. Our pass rate for math 8 was 17%. Our pass rate for reading 7 was 21%. And our pass rate for math 7 was 22%. So as you can see, the no modified test had a tremendous impact on our test scores. So how are we going to improve our test scores? Well, I've talked to the math department, and one of the things that these are short-term strategies. These are things we're doing right now to try to improve test scores. After visiting with the math department, they think we need a new textbook for our 7th grade students. So we're in the process of purchasing new 7th grade math books. Shouldn't say new, I should say different 7th grade math textbooks. Department meetings, we have been meeting. Met with that was one of the suggestions from the math department. I've been meeting with the English department. I've been meeting with the science department. We've been brainstorming on why our scores, other than the things I mentioned, are not where we want them to be, and what we need to do to try to get them where we want them to be. Data-driven instruction. We have a tremendous amount of data. We have OCCT tests, we have NWEA tests, we have EOI tests, we have benchmark testing. We need to make sure our teachers need to make sure they're using that data to let that data drive the instruction to assess where those students are and make sure that those lesson plans are built around that data. Learning goals. One of the things that we're going to do new this year is we're going to have teachers and students work together to develop learning goals. These learning goals will be based upon state testing data and will focus on student growth. We're also going to go over those learning goals with parents during parent-teacher conference night. Professional development. Research shows that high-quality professional development is one of the strategies for improving test scores. We have at the middle school encouraged teachers and will always encourage them to attend professional development. I have a number of teachers that have already signed up for professional development opportunities this year. Intervention training. Reading, English, special ed, and intervention teachers are all going to receive training on identifying struggling readers and how to help those struggling readers. And last year I had the Believe It and Achieve It campaign. This year we're going to have the RAD campaign. RAD is Rewarding Academic Achievement Drawing. All right, what we're going to do with this is we're going to draw for prizes in each tested subject. Students will get chances based on how they perform. A student who stays in the same category but exceeds the state growth average would get 5 chances. A student who scores proficient would receive 5 chances. A student who scores advanced would receive 5 chances. A student that scores proficient and exceeds the state average would get 10 chances. We're going to draw for these prizes when we get the test data in the following year, and we're going to give away some nice prizes. We're going to give away maybe Xbox, iPads, iPods, those kinds of things. And the last thing I have on my short-term strategy is visit successful schools and instructors. In the next 2 weeks, our report cards will become public, and once those report cards become public, we're going to look for schools and instructors with similar demographics that we have, and we're going to seek those places out, and we're going to go visit them and see what successful strategies we're using. And then once we visit them, we're going to bring those strategies back to Seminole. Long-term strategies for improvement. These are some of the things that we're looking at doing, not immediately, but looking to change in the very near future, possibly next year, to try to address our test scores. We're looking at some higher standards for our pre-algebra students. Last year we had about 70% of our pre-algebra students pass the test. We feel like that number should be a little higher. We feel like we can possibly do that by one of 2 ways. One way is to elevate the standards for students to get into pre-algebra. Those students that are kind of bubble students should probably be focusing either on the 7th grade standards or the 8th grade standards. Where sometimes pre-algebra has 7th and 8th grade students in there, they're covering both standards at once. Which is another thing that the math department suggested, is that we have just a 7th grade pre-algebra class and an 8th grade pre-algebra class, where they can spend their time focusing just on 7th grade standards and just on 8th grade standards. Adding a pull-out intervention program for reading classes. We already have a reading intervention program. However, we are limited as to the number of students we can serve in that intervention class. We have more struggling readers than we can serve. So we're looking at ways that we can serve those students in our reading classes. One of the ways that we're considering would be using a pull-out intervention class for our reading classes. Our students are getting English already and reading, so they have that subject, not the exact subject, but the subject 2 hours a day. So we're looking at a way possibly to service some of those students that qualify during that reading class. Changing the eligibility requirement for intervention classes. Right now, we're only serving students that scored unsatisfactory on their reading intervention. We're serving unsatisfactory students in a reading intervention class. We're looking at possibility of changing those eligibility requirements where we would serve more students, more limited knowledge students. In summary, I'd like to say that the middle school faculty is not satisfied with our student achievement. Every person understands that we have to improve. Seminole Middle School staff are dedicated to students and student achievement, and we are committed to providing students with the best education possible. Thank you. Any questions?
On the, the highly mobile students, when that changed October 1st, how significant has that been in Seminole? I mean, how substantially has that affected?
I would have to go back and pull each one of those students' enrollment. It does have an impact, but I wouldn't call it a significant impact.
Okay.
Maybe a percentage or two, but you take a percentage or two for that, and you take a few percentage points for the testing, the no modified test, and then a couple of percentage points here, and your grade drops from C to a D.
I think about, like, from the board's perspective, what the board could do if there could, and I have to go back and look at, like, our policy, if we could do more, when it comes to residency verification, stuff like that, to,
Well, that's one thing we're trying to look at pretty closely too, because we get some of those issues, but we didn't ever get a good rationale from the State Departments why they made that change, because that's something that's been in place for the longest time, and then they just kind of arbitrarily changed that to October 1st. And obviously, the earlier you start school, the more that impacts you. We have students now that come in on October 1st, they've missed 6 weeks of school. And for the State Department to say, well, they're still full on academic year, that's crazy. They've missed 6 weeks of instruction, and they shouldn't be considered full academic year. And how they came up with that just verifies once again that they're not educators. They don't understand the issues that we really deal with. And hopefully a new state superintendent will correct some of those issues, because that's not in legislation. That's just State Department regulations that they hand down. And under Superintendent Barisi, they've consistently tried to hand down regulations that harm public schools and try to make public schools look bad.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to speak to you about our elementary report for our 2013-2014 test scores. Last year, when I spoke about our test scores and our grade at Northwood, my main point was a hope that you would remember that you can't simply drill down a school site to numbers and percentages, that our schools are so much more than a letter grade or than test scores. And having the opportunity to work at several sites, I think gives me a unique perspective, because I've been able to see all of the wonderful things that our staff members do, and they should be applauded for that. But altogether, we are still pleased to tell you about our progress at Northwood. If you look on this slide, I've broken these down by the number of students that are proficient in reading compared from 2013. That first column includes the all students, which are regular ed and our special education students who are considered full academic year. In 2013, we had 69% in fourth grade proficient. 2014, 73%. For fifth grade in 2013, looking at all students still, 58% proficient, 61% in 2014. 2013 results for sixth grade, all students category is 54%. And when I say proficient, that's proficient and above. That would be proficient and advanced added together. 2014, we were at 58% without the OMAP. Then looking at the regular ed students on the far to right columns, you can see the same type of differences between 2013 and 2014 results. So we were pleased with those growth movements there. When you look at our scores, it's especially important to keep in mind that statewide test scores are down with the addition of regular ed students and all students being put in the same category without the OMAP. The fact that at Northwood they were able to show growth is actually quite remarkable, and our staff is understandably proud about that. When we look at math, looking at our full academic year for 4th, 5th, and 6th graders again, same format. For 2013, our 4th grade students in the all category were at 72% proficient. 2014, we were at 65%. 5th grade, 2013 all was 60%. For 2014, the all students category without the OMAP was 62%. For 6th grade, 63% in 2013 and 67% in 2014. And again, as you look at the differences between how our students did in 2014, if you look at 71% proficient with regular ed versus 62%, that's a pretty common trend to see about an 8 to a 10 or 11 point difference with taking the OMAP assessment away, which is really unfortunate. As you know, our 5th graders also take some additional assessments. The ones that are being reported out are social studies and science. We didn't get 2013 results for our students in social studies, so I had to pull back from 2012. That's what this represents. So in 2012, our 5th graders in the all student category with the OMAP, that meant they were able to use modified assessments for those students. We were at 51% proficient. 2014, we were proud to show that we had 74% proficient, with 41% of that group scoring in the advanced range. For science, we moved from 37% proficient to 44% proficient without the OMAP test. And it's the same type of numbers on the regular ed for 2013 versus 2014, the differences. We know that the cut scores in these areas, especially social studies, are going to change. That's a given. We don't really know what the test is going to look like in the next few years. We have a pretty good idea for this year. They have finally updated the most recent blueprints. I checked as early as Thursday of last week, and those were still showing the 2013 blueprints. But today I checked again, and they do have those updated with the 2014 through 2017. So they're thinking in that range. This will be our blueprint, our plan that the teachers will follow for the next couple of years. After that, we don't know what they'll look like. It will depend on what the standards are. And those tests will have to be created, tested, field tested, all of those things that have to go into creating a statewide assessment. We believe that a lot of our improvement is due to our reading intervention approach. We know that whenever reading scores can increase, that has a ripple effect to our other content areas. When students read better for just reading's sake, they're also going to hopefully have success in other content. So we feel very confident about our reading intervention numbers. If you'll look at these numbers on the slide, the students that were served in our 2013-2014 school year, that's the past school year, were identified based on their OCCT performance, that's the state assessment, and or their NWA performance, which is the assessment we give 3 times throughout the year. It could also be from teachers' benchmark information or just teacher referral. We even have students that self-refer. They identify and know that they have a weakness. Maybe they weren't our student last year, so we didn't have their OCCT data, but they know they need some help and they'll self-refer themselves. We've had several of them do that this year, which we think is a positive thing. But it shows that in fourth grade, we served a total of 48 students. And that wasn't 48 students at any one given time. That was 48 students throughout the year. We had 49 students from third grade coming into fourth grade that year that were not proficient on the state reading test. But that 48 doesn't include all of those students. Students move away, students move in, and we also identify students through the year that were maybe on the bubble. They were a low 700 range on the OCCT, which means they're very close to dropping to the limited knowledge range. So we always try to provide them with extra support to make sure that they don't slip back into a lower category. 10 of the students that were part of this 28 previously had scored limited knowledge, and 2 of those were unsatisfactory. But 28 out of the 48 that had some type of reading intervention through the year with our reading assistants at a 58% rate were proficient on the test. With 13 of that 48 scoring limited knowledge, many of those moved up from unsatisfactory to limited knowledge. We also do have some students that don't do as well. Perhaps they slip back a category, and they are on our radar from the very first day of school, which was a wonderful position to be in this year, so that we could start right away and not wait until we had everybody trained and all of our personnel in place and all of the things that we were working through last year. For fifth grade, you can see the numbers. 12 out of 29 of those students were proficient. 11 of that 12 were limited knowledge the previous year, and 1 of those was unsatisfactory. And those are the students that help us with our overall growth, and many times our bottom 25% growth, which is something that we get a grade on from the state. And then sixth grade, 14 of the 40 were proficient at 35%. We're pleased that our unsatisfactory range of the students that were receiving reading intervention is a number that's declining. We want that number to continually go down while the other 2 numbers go up. Some members of our reading intervention team have looped with their students, which means, for example, Mrs. Ledbetter, who's our reading specialist at the building, she worked with 5th graders last year. And so she already knows those students. She knows their parents. She knows their data inside and out. Instead of her relearning an entirely new group of students and all of their information, she moved up with those students and began working with them right away in 6th grade. We're anxious to see what kind of positives that provides for our program. And we also spoke about last year, whenever you're making, I know the question came up about, well, what are you going to do about math? And we knew that if we were going to do this reading intervention and to do it well, that we needed to narrow our focus and tackle one thing at a time. And so we feel like that's going in a really positive direction. We're very confident about the program, and now we're able to take that next challenge on, which is our math. We've purchased new curriculum for all 3 grades, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, which actually aligns us K through 6 with our math program. The teachers have new materials, and a lot of the final parts of that new material finally came in today, so they're excited to dig in there and get started. The teachers who gave me feedback about the Envision program, is the name of our new math program, the ones that gave me feedback about it felt like that the materials exceeded the rigor of PASS, and remembering PASS is just the basic competency skills. That's not the standard we want them to only be at. That's the bare minimum. We want to exceed above that. So looking at our data, one of the things that we do with teachers is looking at the different reports, and we get boxes and boxes of reports. Rhonda can testimony to that because her office becomes overwhelmed with the boxes. But within those boxes are some very useful pieces of information, and this is one of them that is very helpful. At the top you can see this is the disaggregated group results of standards and objectives, and it's breaking down the standards and objectives that were assessed on the test. And we're looking at 4th grade reading. That little green dot on line number 6, I know that the writing is a little blurry, so that's why I have these marked for you. That is the all students range. And when we're looking at data, we're not just looking at how can I help my regular ed students do better. We have to look at all of our students, whether they're FAE or in-FAE. We teach everybody. It doesn't matter when they came to us. We're going to make sure that we do the best that we can for them every day. So this piece of information We use in grade level meeting, if you go across this line right here and you see the circles, anywhere that we were 75% or lower in that objective, these are standards and objectives written up here, anywhere we were 75% or lower, we've circled that, and then the teachers discussed, all right, what are the strategies that we're using and doing for that particular objective, and what could we do differently? Many times it's a very frustrating report for teachers because they look at it and say, oh my goodness, we've been doing synonyms, antonyms, and homonyms for years. What is it that they're not getting when it comes time to show mastery on the test? We go back to the item specifications, which are the pieces of information the State Department gives us. What types of questions will be on there? What depth of knowledge will they have? What will the descriptors be like? What will the distractors be like? What are the content limiters? All of that is part of the discussion, and they're looking at all of that information as they're planning their lessons day to day and week to week. One of the areas that was low is summary and generalizations. That's this one right here. That's a higher level thinking skill. Students have to take information from their own experiences, read the passage, and be able to infer, summarize, or generalize to come up with the right answer. It is a challenging thing because I believe many of those questions can be almost right, close to right. There's probably one that's definitely wrong. So when students are already under pressure and nervous, it's easy to slip up there. Literary elements, figurative language, sound devices, and then accessing information. That's an area that our librarian helps us with. That's that final column. And one of the interesting things to know about accessing information, the item specifications and the blueprints let us know that there will probably be questions about a card catalog on the assessment. Well, the students that we have through probably 7th or 8th grade don't use a card catalog. We access information in the library over the internet. But the librarian takes time from a teacher's class to teach a lesson about the card catalog. This is what it is, this is what it looks like, to show them even what that piece would look like if they came to it on a question on the test.
It's not the giant cabinet that you pull the long drawers out.
Yes, that was the cool thing, right? But now, and that's still one of the things that's part of the blueprint, according to the blueprint, that they would be assessed on, but they don't look for books like that anymore. It needs to catch up with the times a bit. So this is just an example of a 6th grade math standard and objective form. Again, you can see we've identified areas that the teachers will pay particular attention to. They've also already looked at, for example, the 5th grade group asked, can we see the 4th grade SOAP-B report so that we can see how this group of students that I have in my classroom right now, how they did last year. Are they the same type of weak areas that we're showing that the students that just left us had? And we can also see this report for each individual student. We can see what their individual strengths and weaknesses were, which is very important. One of the things on this math, you'll see, it's a little difficult to see, but the circles, there are 4 questions on the test about circles. And circles in math is a developmental skill. It's much like multiplication and division. Students are ready to learn that content at different times throughout their development. I was in the teacher's classroom when she was going through this unit and teaching about circles. It was very rich. Included the radius and diameter and how the circumference comes to pi. How do you get that number pi? And it was a very hands-on lesson. It's still one of those things that until children are ready developmentally to process that information and apply it when they see it on the test is much different than it would be for a 6th grader versus a 7th grader or an 8th grader. In fact, in our new math curriculum, circles is included as what is called a step-up lesson, which would be a traditional enrichment type lesson. But it's a past skill that's heavily scored on part of their test. So, looking at all of our data and all of our information, our action plan at Northwood is our intervention is continuing to progress. We're confident about it. We need time to continue to make adjustments and to move our staff and move our students where they need to be and where they're best fitted. We've additional curriculum resources. Didn't mention Spire, but that is one of the things that our intervention team is also using. Spire is a nationally recognized reading intervention program, and all of the assistants are using the Spire program to help, in addition with our Envision Math. One of the cool things about Envision Math, there are some really nice online materials and videos that go along with it, so students can access that, digital textbook type materials at home, which will be helpful for them. Obviously, we're continuing to focus on our standards. We know that the cut scores will likely change, which means we have to constantly look, evaluate, look at our methods, look at our strategies, collaborate as a team, talk to other schools that are successful. Whenever we're planning lessons, we're working as one big collaborative team. And we will continue our attendance challenges throughout this school year. They were very successful last year. Our attendance rate was way up. Our attendance rate right now is about 97+%, which is wonderful. We need our students there every day. If we have them in class every day, it's much easier to make the gains that we want to make. Any questions? Okay. Ms. Cheatwood is going to talk next.
Okay, these are our 2013-2014 scores. And if you will look at all 2014, that's all the students tested, including IEP students or special education students. In math, we had 69% of our students who scored proficient on the math portion of the OCCT. We had 61% that scored proficient on the reading portion of the OCCT. Now, if you'll look at the regular ed 2014, that's scores that did not include our special ed student scores. In math, we had a 75% pass rate, or 75% scored proficient or above. And in reading, we had 71% who scored proficient on the reading portion of the OCCT. I'll give you a little bit of our reading intervention data in third grade. When we began intervention in late October, early November of last school year, we had 89 students that were below the NWEA cut scores. 20 of these students were special education, so they were served in the special education classes. But 69 of these students entered intervention, and they were in there all year. When breaking down the NWEA results for these students from last year's results, I found that these students averaged a 12-point gain in their NWEA scores. Some students had gains of 20 points plus, and we even had a few students who made 29-point gains, and that is huge. When we look at the OCCT breakdown for third grade reading, I want to focus on the students who are in intervention first. Out of the 69 students that were served, 34 of those students scored proficient or above. 27 scored limited knowledge, and 8 scored unsatisfactory, and I thought that was a really good number. Of the 8 that scored unsatisfactory, 3 of them were placed in special education during the year. Now, looking at the class as a whole, we had 129 students who took the OCCT reading test. 3 scored advanced, 74 were proficient, 29 were limited knowledge, and 23 were unsatisfactory. That takes us to our RSA third grade retention data, because we had to look at the 23 students that scored unsatisfactory. And of the 23 students, 17 of them qualified for a good cause exemption, which means they were special education with at least 1 retention. 2 were retained, and 2 received probationary promotion, and 2 moved. Not everyone scored proficient, but our gains were monumental when breaking down all of the scores. First and second grade intervention data. In second grade, 50 of 109 students scored grade level according to the NWEA RIT scores at the beginning of school last year. This class also made great progress with an average of 13-point increases on NWEA scores from fall of 2013 to spring of 2014. First grade averaged 12-point gains on the NWEA scores. 14 of 78 of the students gained 20-plus points on the NWA scores. The focus of the intervention is progress on phonetic skills. We have seen remarkable gains in students on the phonics continuum. We do not look just at NWEA scores to drive our instruction, but we also look at the weaknesses on the phonics continuum. And this is the phonics continuum. It starts with phonemes, and this is more of it, and it's vast. But research shows that these phonics skills are necessary for 1st through 3rd grade students in order for them to become fluent readers. We use this continuum as an assessment tool to find the students' gaps in phonics. And this is a picture of our data wall that we use at Wilson. Once we identify the students' gaps, we put tabs on the data wall, and they're color-coded by grade. And that marks each individual student's start for their progress at that point. And once a student masters a skill, we move them to the next level on the phonics continuum. We believe that the phonics continuum will supply our students with the tools they need to become fluent readers. Where are we now and where are we going? Number one, our teachers are still continuing to focus on our standards, on our test blueprints. We will continue to use the many pieces of data that we collect to drive our instruction, and we're going to continue an aggressive intervention program. The good news in screening our students this year at the beginning of the year with the phonics survey, we're finding that all of the students are beginning the year at much higher levels on the phonics continuum than they did last year at all grade levels. Are we where we want to be? No, but we're taking great strides in the right direction. And are all of our students proficient on OCCT? No, but we saw tremendous growth. So at Wilson, we're going to celebrate our gains. Thank you.
Good evening. We're also excited at BLS about our gains. We're really looking forward to another great year. I'm very thankful for a chance to get to be there with strong teachers and wonderful kids. Looking at our kindergarten data, we had about 151 students in kindergarten at BLS. And out of those 151 students, 122 of them met benchmark at the end of the year. So when looking at our intervention students, we started the year at 74 students in intervention, and 41 of those students met benchmark at the end of the year. We were excited that only 33 students we sent to Wilson on the 1st grade wall required intervention. On the phonological awareness continuum, 67 out of 74 intervention students made it to the phoneme level on the continuum. The students who did not make it to the end of the continuum were either retained in kindergarten or on an IEP. So what am I talking about when I say they got to the phoneme level? What is phonological awareness? Why is it important for our struggling readers? This is my personal passion, is helping struggling readers. If students aren't mastering letters and sounds, that's what we consider early phonics, we have to ask ourselves why. And we have to look at the research to decide why exactly are students not mastering those phonics. And what research has shown is that it is phonological awareness. Now, there are two terms that you're going to hear, and sometimes you hear these terms interchangeably, but they do not mean the same thing. Phonological awareness is an umbrella term, and it includes everything that you think of when it comes to speech, to the sounds that we hear. It's actually that sentences are made up of words, and words are made up of syllables, and that syllables are made up of smaller sounds. And so like cat, it has 3 sounds, k, at. Students with a phonological problem, they hear the word cat as a unit, cat. They don't hear the nuances of the language. They don't hear k, at. It seems really simple to us, but if you're a student with a phonological processing disorder, you don't hear the individual phoneme sounds. And I give an example of something that helped me really understand phonological awareness. Phonological awareness, if I'm listening to someone speak another language, it sounds to me like a long string of tones and sounds. I really don't hear the breaks of, are those words? Are those sounds? Is that a long word? Is that a short word? But if I had someone sit down with me and over time say, all right, this is a sentence, and it probably would take me a long time to learn a new language, just like some of our students who have a processing disorder, they'd have to say, okay, here's a sentence, it's made up of words, Here's words. It's made up of these little word parts. Repeat after me. Are you hearing the differences in the language? And so that is a similarity to what our students have when they have a phonological processing disorder. They're hearing our language as a long tone. They're not picking up on the nuances of language. So when our phonics instruction, though it is wonderful, but if we're saying, here's a B, it says B. Here's a B, it says B. There's a big difference if we're not processing that B. And when you see students, and I see this all the time, with a phonological processing disorder, they can know that that B says B, that A says A, and that T says T. But so many times they'll say B, A, T, car. And you're thinking, wow, they really don't process the sounds. But the good news is that we can actually pinpoint what phonological skill that they are lacking. And we do that through our data wall that I'll show you in just a minute. But those two interchangeable terms that I was telling you about, phonological awareness versus phonemic awareness, phonemic awareness is understanding the language and hearing it and processing it all the way down to the tiniest part, which is called a phoneme. A phoneme is the tiniest part of language that we can process. And those phonemes attach to graphemes, which is a fancy word for letters, and that's what we call phonics. So if we don't have phonological awareness, we're not going to be able to get our phonics. If we can't decode with our phonics, we're not going to be fluent readers. And if we're not fluent readers, we can't comprehend. So we're going to briefly look. Here's some research to back up what I'm saying about phonological awareness. The two best predictors of early reading success are alphabetic recognition and phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness is central in learning to read and spell. The lack of phonemic awareness is the most powerful determinant of the likelihood of failure to read. To me, that sentence just says, whoa. That one sentence says, we need to look at this. Phonemic awareness is the most important core and causal factor in separating normal and disabled readers. Phonemic awareness is the most potent predictor of success in learning to read. It is more highly related to reading than tests of general intelligence, reading readiness, and listening comprehension. This quote is by Sally Shaywitz. She is an MD from Yale that has studied dyslexia and struggling readers extensively. And I love her book that she wrote in case you ever need to refer to a struggling reader parent. It's called Overcoming Dyslexia. But she said, yes, there really is a difference in brain activation patterns between good and poor readers. We see the difference when people carry out phonologically based tasks. One of the things that is remarkable is that we actually can see on an fMRI, a functional MRI, that the parts of the brain responsible for helping us to read. That part of the brain is called the phonological processor, and it actually, the activation is less on students that have this disorder. So we're not just talking theory. This science is coming together in many different ways to help us understand how to help struggling readers. Here's an example of our data wall at BLS. If you look at those posters, each poster has what those skills on the phonological awareness continuum. Here's the headings of those skills. Starts out, the sentences are made up of words. Can we hear rhymes? Syllabication, all the way down to the phoneme level. So when I said that all of our students, our regular ed students, in fact, all of our regular ed students made it to the phoneme level, I meant they started out at the very beginning and made it all the way to the end, which says they are primed for phonics. And we are really excited because that progress has been remarkable. Enough to where we cheer every day for students because it's a wonderful thing. And understanding that if we're going to help our struggling readers, there is an early childhood focus because it takes 4 times as long to remediate a student in the 4th grade than it does in late kindergarten or 1st grade, according to Leone and Fletcher. And so if you look at this graph, you see how the lines are pretty close together early on, 1st, 2nd grade, and even closer in kindergarten. The gap is not huge when you're looking at kindergarten and 1st grade. But as we progress through the grades, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and the gap is so big that it makes it really hard to close those gaps. In fact, we know what research says, 4 times as long. So we know that we have a sense of urgency in early childhood. That puts a lot of pressure on myself and Mrs. Cheatwood because we know that if we're going to help students succeed in the long term, we've got to focus on what we're doing right now. the probability of remaining a poor reader at the end of the 4th grade. And what this says is that if you don't read well at the end of the 1st grade, in the 4th grade you're not going to read well. And there's more bodies of research that says if you don't read well in the 4th grade, you're not going to read well in the 9th grade. You're not going to read well in 11th grade. You're never going to read well. So does that put pressure on Mrs. Cheatwood and I? Absolutely. And we're up for the challenge because we know not only we can close those gaps, they're not monumental yet. The older they get, the bigger the gaps, because reading problems don't resolve themselves. They take a diagnostic and a prescriptive approach in order to get there. And we also have a sense of urgency because we only have a few days, if you look at it, 180 days per school year that we have with students, and that's not a lot of time. By the time, it's only 720 days to get them to where they need to be. So we do feel that sense of urgency. So how will BLS continue to address our students' needs? Intervention began the 2nd week of school. We got to jump right in. As soon as the kindergartners were ready to be into reading intervention, we jumped in. Pre-kindergarten intervention is going to start in November. We're going to start pre-kindergarten in November because we think they're going to be more acclimated to the school environment. Pre-kindergarten, it's a hard adjustment for our babies. But we know that the earlier we can start this intervention, that we can close the gaps and cause them to be really ready for phonics whenever it's introduced to them in kindergarten. And phonics is introduced and it's taught very well in our pre-K classrooms. But our problem is remember, some students just aren't ready. We are also oral language intervention for students with oral language deficiencies, and that continued sense of urgency. And talking about the oral language, NWEA is a really wonderful tool for us because it breaks down, it even tells us there are oral language problems with some students. It goes into 4 categories, so we actually can see when there's that deficiency with they've not maybe been spoken to as much, or maybe from as advantaged homes as others. So conversations with Cleta, if you know our secretary at BLS, she's really good at conversating, and she really helps those students with that discourse and increasing their vocabulary. She's a jewel, and we appreciate her so much. She keeps us running. So as a team, as an administrative team, we would like to express our gratitude. We want to say that we are thankful for teachers who love children and put their needs above all else and expect all students to have great success. We're thankful for reading assistants who have caught the vision and understand that all children can not only learn, but exceed all expectations. We're thankful for the many support staff who complete their vital work with excellence, allowing us to focus on education. We're thankful for Mr. Pritchard and Mrs. Townsend who believe in the value of education, provide, guide, and equip us all. We're thankful for a school board who promotes quality education in our community, supports and encourages us in our endeavor to change lives through education. One thing that John H. Jackson, president of the Schott Foundation for Public Education, said is the nation recognizes its social, civic, and economic strength is directly linked to the strength of its public schools. But if every child is to have an opportunity for success, then every child must have a true opportunity to learn. And we feel like as a team, we're providing that here at Seminole Public Schools.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes our administrative report. I don't know if you guys want to stay where you are, if you want to move back around to the front. It's up to you. I'd just like to say before we continue on how proud I am of our administrative team and how fortunate we are here at Seminole to have the group that we have. They do an outstanding job, and I couldn't be more pleased with the work that they're doing, and I know that we're going to see great strides in the future.
I agree. Thank you. Okay, we are on number 6, consider and take necessary action to declare obsolete technology surplus.
This is just a list, this bunch of computers?
Yes, a bunch of computers. A lot of these, some of them all of them are ones we just can't use any longer.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're through the process of trying to get all the inventory straight with that, and we have all that here if anyone wants to see it. But it's important that we get the serial numbers off of our other inventory because some of these are purchased with federal program dollars, and after a certain period of time, then they can be declared obsolete and put on surplus. And we've been through that process, and I want to thank Kelly Murdoch and the students at Alternative Education because they helped us in that process, and we like to try to provide them real life experiences in doing things, and they were able to kind of learn how to do an inventory and develop those sheets, and we appreciate their help on that.
Make a motion, we declare obsolete technology surplus.
I'll second that.
Jamie Mills?
Yes.
Kay Levy?
Yes.
Jack Cadenhead?
Yes.
Amy Cole-Clasher? Claudia Willis?
Consider and take necessary action to approve the 2014-2015 estimate of needs.
That's in your packet. This is a yearly process. We go through that. This auditor provides that for us, and it provides all the information that we then use to develop our budget, which we'll actually present to you next month for approval. But this is all the facts and the amounts that go into that.
But ours has been filed with the county clerk already.
It's not filed until you approve it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So once it's signed today, we need to make sure that you stay and do those signatures at the end of the evening, and that will be filed with the county clerk then.
Why did I see ours was ours? Okay.
It's a lot of numbers.
We'll just have to sign, the ones that are here will just be the ones that sign it. Yeah. Yeah, because we do have to get that in with the county clerk and to the State Department before the end of the month.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the 2014-2015 estimate of needs that's provided to us.
I'll second that.
Jamie Mills?
Yes.
Kay Levy?
Yes.
Jack Cadenhead?
Yes.
Amy Cole-Clasher? Claudia Willis?
Consider and take necessary action to authorize payment of $22,242.60 from the building fund to the general fund for reimbursement of lease payments made during the 2013-2014 fiscal year as a result of the change in the State Department of Education regulations.
And then once again, they changed on us in midstream, and one thing that they allow us to do out of general fund, they changed on us without informing us, which was really maddening, but we just deal with it and move on.
I'd like to move that we authorize that payment as listed.
I'll second. Roll call.
Jamie Mills?
Yes.
Kay Levy?
Yes.
Jack Cadenhead?
Yes.
Amy Cole-Clasher? Claudia Willis?
Consider and take necessary action to approve the cancellation of appropriations in fiscal year 14 and add in fiscal year 12.
Was that just for?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was curious.
Well,
What-
that's
I
actually
know.
right, that's actually if I'm not mistaken, it's $56 and a few cents that wasn't handled at the time that it was supposed to be, and so we need to go back and correct it.
Oh, okay. So moved.
Second.
Jamie Mills?
Yes.
Kay Levy?
Yes.
Jack Cadenhead?
Yes.
Amy Cole-Clasher? Claudia Willis?
Consider and take necessary action to approve amended 2014-2015 school calendar. Where is that?
I like the change.
I do too.
My only question, isn't that one of the, what about the PSAT? What,
Well, we've changed the date on that.
okay, will it be on the 18th?
I'm not sure, what was the day we changed that to? Do you remember, Mr. Osborne?
I believe it was the 18th. We went to the alternate day.
Yeah,
It's a Saturday, okay,
yeah.
okay.
No, we were able to move it to, I believe, school day.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, 'cause we didn't want it to be on a Saturday. We didn't want it to be during fall break either.
Right.
Yeah, and so we were able to get it on another.
October 29th, okay.
Yeah.
That was my only concern.
Right, that was our only question too. When we, that was actually a suggestion. I don't remember who suggested that at one of our team meetings, but everyone really liked that fact that it gives a 3-day fall break.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, it's a good move. But then the PSAT kind of came up. But Mr. Osborne, both Mr. Osbornes were able to come up with an alternate date. So.
Good.
So when is the PSAT now?
October 29th.
Sorry, I couldn't find my calendar. October
Yes, yeah.
29th.
The only thing that changes is we're, instead of being out one day and doing a parent-teacher conference in
Oh, okay,
September,
that's right, 'cause we
we're doing it in October instead, and gives us a 3-day fall break instead of 2.
Got it.
Yeah.
I will
And-
make, oh, sorry, go ahead.
But I was going to say, there's a couple of reasons for that. One of the reasons is that we really try to take care of our alumni association because they do so much for us, and homecoming's that weekend, and they, really go all out to try to bring people back for that, and they come and tour the high school, and like to go to the pep assembly, and we were going to be out of school that day.
Yeah.
And so it really didn't work out well for the things that they try to do, and so that was one of the driving factors in making that change.
Yeah. I'll make a motion, we approve the amended 2014-15 school calendar.
I'll second that.
Jamie Mills.
Yes.
Kay Levy.
Yes.
Jack Cadenhead.
Yes.
Amy Cole-Clasher, Claudia Willis.
Discussion and possible action to charter and sponsor in-school 4-H club.
Once again, it's something we're really excited about. Of course, expecting approval from the board. We're going to have a meeting. Actually going to ask Cole Cheatwood to sponsor that for us. He's excited about that, and he and I are going to meet tomorrow at 4 o'clock.
What
to
does he do
discuss
now?
that. He's one of our former students.
Right.
His mom works for us. And now he works out at Sigma right now, or Bar S,
Okay.
I guess is the correct term, isn't it?
Okay.
And I've talked to Cole too, and one thing that you'll have to tell him, Ms. Cheatwood, Kay, Miss Levy, is a master gardener, and you would be. I mean, Cole was going to be. I mean, great on so many, but he and I were talking Sunday. There's going to be some things that he does not know everything about, but we've got great resources like my mother can do programs on needlework. Miss Cole-Clasher's not here. She can do programs on speech. I mean, there are a lot of resources that he has to tap into, and he knows that. But make sure you tell him she's a master gardener.
Can't turn him down on TV.
Thanks, Jim.
I'll make a motion. We charter and sponsor an in-school 4-H community club.
I'll second that.
Jamie Mills.
Yes.
Kay Levy.
Yes.
Jack Cadenhead.
Yes.
Amy Cole-Clasher, Claudia Willis.
Discussion and possible action on proposed changes to the Seminole High School Student Handbook to the Grades and Credits Scholars Program section. Which was...
On the proposal in our materials, it looks like there's a. I just wanted to make sure that, and I talked to Amy about this, and just make sure that it's in there that, and it looks like it's supposed to be included in the parentheses on that list of math courses that 4 from the following: Algebra 1, Algebra 2, Geometry, Algebra 3, Trig, or Calculus. And then of these courses listed, math units taken at the middle school and transcript of this high school lectures will count as math units for scholars programs purposes.
Right. Yeah, I
Does
think
that
what-
go without
Right.
saying? Or?
Yeah, I think what you had was that's in the bold.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Right, but you're right, it just says math units, it doesn't
right
say from that list.
I mean, so
Right.
if they take pre-algebra in
Right.
8th grade,
Right,
that's not
counting.
going to count.
Right.
No.
I mean, it'd just be of those
Right,
listed.
because
But-
pre-algebra doesn't even count for high school credit at what level. Everything that you take from freshman year on has to be equivalent in rigor to algebra. Intermediate counts, math and finance is considered to be there, but there's a limited number of courses they consider to be equivalent in rigor to algebra.
Okay. Well, I mean, it probably goes without saying. I just thought we ought to. I mean, I just wanted to make sure that that's clear that it's
From that
middle
list.
math units taken in middle school from those listed
Right.
count
Yeah,
for
that-
scholar
that-
program
right,
purposes.
I think that's pretty well understood as far as
Okay.
that's concerned, yeah.
So this beginning with,
I don't know what there's a.
what if it's 7th grade? Or, I mean, does it matter when they take them? I'd say just don't even say beginning with. As long as you
Just
have
as-
those 4 credits, they have those 4 credits.
Right, and we don't let 6th graders can't come over.
No, but there's nothing to say that couldn't happen at some
Right.
point.
Right.
And
But
with
if they
with our
did,
plans to possibly
aren't they
include
wonderful?
6th grade into the middle school, in
Yeah.
in the future, you could have a student that's really advanced
Yeah.
that, we've
Well,
had some that
we'd
could
hate
have done
to
that.
knock them out of the scholars programs because they were in 6th grade when they did that.
Right,
you know.
right. So
I
I
just say
think that we
4
need
from
to.
that, no matter when they did it.
Right.
Right.
And, I'll say this about the Scholars Program. It's something that the committee has constantly looked at throughout the history of the program. They're always making changes and updates to it. And so we've always hoped that it would be a program that was very flexible, that could be changed as needed. And we hope that it continues to be that way.
I'll.
You want to take that
Yeah.
off? Okay.
Well, can we just the beginning? So,
This is a separate discussion, though, from the
college
College
courses.
courses.
Yes.
Okay. so
Yes,
nothing to-
this is
isn't
just
either or.
scholars.
This
Right.
replaced that on the agenda, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha, just making sure, okay.
Do we need to cross out the beginning with there? I mean,
You know, those parentheses at the end of the
Begin
yellow?
with,
Might just
Yeah,
be a-
that
just
last part,
cross
that's
it
what you're
off.
saying.
Yeah, right.
If that makes it clearer, then yes, I'd say so.
yeah.
Okay.
I'll make a motion, we approve the proposed change to the Seminole High School Student Handbook to the Grades and Credits Scholars Program section, as discussed here tonight.
I'll second that.
Jamie Mills.
Yes.
Kay Levy.
Yes.
Jack Cadenhead.
Yes.
Amy Cole-Clasher, Claudia Willis.
Proposed executive session to discuss the employment of those certified and/or non-certified personnel listed in Agenda Item 17 pursuant to 25 OS Section 307B1. Do we need to? I don't think so. Okay. We are taking no action. Consider and take necessary action to convene an not doing that.
Drop
Consider and
on
take-
down to 17.
Go on down to 17. Mark off, mark off, mark off. Okay. 17, consider and take necessary action to accept the superintendent's recommendation to employ the certified, non-certified personnel as listed below. A through J. Taking the cheat way out.
I'll make a motion that we accept the superintendent's recommendation to employ the certified and non-certified personnel listed.
I'll second that.
Jamie Mills.
Yes.
Kay Levy.
Yes.
Jack Cadenhead.
Yes.
Amy Cole-Clasher, Claudia Willis.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank
Second.
you.
Jamie Mills.
Yes.
Kay Levy.
Yes.
Jack Cadenhead.
Yes.
Amy Cole-Clasher, Claudia Willis.